Today on the Winning with Shopify podcast.
One of the things about everything I've done is I've always done my own books. And so I'm very, very particular about making sure my books are accurate on a daily basis. And that's what Bookkeep does.
E-commerce businesses, it's not like any other company.
You got to track all your revenue. You got to track all your costs.
I'm a moron. I'm an idiot. I'm completely inexperienced. I don't know anything about any of this stuff.
I think it's super important. It's not beneath you as an owner. Accounting is the language of business.
Actually, you need to be doing this whether you're just one little store out of a bedroom still, or at your garage at home. I've started saying garage rather than garage. Just the amount of Americans I talk to. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Winning with Shopify podcast. For anyone that's not tuned in before, I'm Nick, I'm British, hence the accent, and I've been running the show since 2020, I believe it was. I hadn't actually prepared myself to read out that statistic. Yeah, 2020, I took over from the lovely Caroline, who was Australian. Most of our listeners are in the US, and so are my guests today, who I'm going to introduce it very, very shortly. If you haven't already, please leave us a review, hit subscribe if you haven't on whatever platform you're on. You can watch us on Spotify now. You can listen to us on Spotify. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts. We're also on Alexa and lots of other platforms. And if you really want to as well, you can check us out on YouTube. There are commenting features on Spotify, YouTube, and a whole range of other places. We've also gone minorly viral recently on Instagram and TikTok, which is quite exciting. Depends on your definition of the word viral, but on Instagram, we're hitting hundreds of thousands of views every single day on our stories and our reels as well, which is super exciting. Anyway, today, you've probably seen in the title, Revenue Automation for Shopify. I'm delighted to be joined by Jason, who is the founder and CEO of Bookkeep. So Jason, without further ado, welcome to the show. How are you?
Great. Nice to be here, Nick. Thanks for having us.
Well, it's great to have you on the show. And if anyone's listening to the name Bookkeep and thinking we're going to be talking about end of year accounts and how to do filing and stuff, that is not the direction we're going in today at all.
Nope.
Tell us a bit more, Jason, about Bookkeep, about what you guys do and some of the problems that you solve.
Totally. So, my background is in retail. I actually, besides starting out on a trading desk in New York City, after that, I opened a wine store that turned into a grocery store that turned into a POS company. So I actually built a company called Shopkeep, which was a POS system. We were actually the first on the iPad. Square followed us. Square got a lot more money, got bigger, but I have a huge amount of experience in retail and POS, and and believe it or not, Shopkeep was briefly. We talked to Harley about potentially being acquired before they launched Shopify POS. We're talking 12 years ago now. So I have a huge amount of experience in POS and e-commerce and data. But one of the things about everything I've done is I've always done my own books. I always did my books in the grocery store, did my books in the wine store. And so I'm very, very particular about making sure my books are accurate on a daily basis. And that's what Bookkeep does. So what Bookkeep does is we take all your Shopify data, we turn it into accounting data. We post daily summaries to your accounting system so that when you run your reports in QuickBooks, Sage Intacct, NetSuite, whatever accounting system you're doing, you have accurate revenue, accurate cost of goods sold, accurate fees. And we do this for Shopify. We do it for Amazon Seller. We do it for a bunch of other POS systems as well, but we're really focused on Shopify and all the financial needs of Shopify customers.
Amazing. And I said to you guys straight away when we hit record that Jason and we are not going to be talking about the boring, like how to submit your accounts to your local government and your nationwide government at the end of the year and pay your tax. We're talking about how to make better decisions to generate more revenue. That is where we're going. And say that real-time information, we in my world have a lot of that in Google Ads and stuff, but it is locked into that specific system and purely only for marketing needs. What are some of the reasons people would need that real-time information beyond just decreasing budgets or moving campaigns left, right, and center in the kind of digital marketing space? What are some of the other use cases that people would use Bookkeep for?
The real reason is you want your books to be accurate, right? So your financial system, your general ledger, usually QuickBooks Online. We have customers mostly on QuickBooks Online, unless you're multi-entity. But your financial system is reconciled to your bank account. Our system helps reconcile Shopify's revenue to your bank account, right? And so no matter what reports you're seeing in Shopify, what errors happen, you do the date range wrong, whatever, like your financial system has to reconcile all that. So and one of the big problems is finding an accounting firm or a bookkeeper that understands how to take those numbers and get it into your accounting system. Even if they understand how to do it, it's a huge amount of manual work, and having someone do it manually is just doesn't always last, right? So we consistently, automatically every night post your financials from Shopify, from Amazon Seller, from PayPal, by the way, which is a huge nightmare to deal with PayPal and fees,
Yes, it
so
is.
that you have proper COGS, you have proper top line, so that if you can allocate your spend on marketing on a daily basis as well, you can actually get into daily P&Ls or weekly P&Ls, or you can go to your accounting system and see how do we do the day before Thanksgiving, which encompasses not only Shopify, but my Amazon
Mm.
seller, and maybe I'm on TikTok. And so you can see all of that kind of in one place from a financial standpoint. It's not going to go into order detail, but it's not easy to get that into your accounting system and understand how to translate order data to financial data. So that's really, it's really important to get that automated, because as you grow, you really want your financials to be right. And it also, of course, is very important to make sure you pay your sales tax and your VAT,
Yep.
and all those things. So there's a lot of reasons to get it automated. You can't just assume that you're going to get a bookkeeper that's going to be able to do that, because bookkeepers just get overwhelmed with paying bills, dealing with vendors, all kinds of other stuff that they have to figure out. That for them to be able to book daily revenue is not something you should expect from a bookkeeper.
Yeah, and you can imagine the cost as well for a human to be clicking buttons to try and get daily statistics running through. But the
Yeah,
thing I would say, back to what you've just described is amazing on the basis that e-commerce businesses, whether it's point of sale or online, it's not like any other company. It's not like we as a service
yeah,
business. I can tell you what I'm going to be billing for the next 30 days, probably to 95% accuracy, because we've got contracts and and invoices going out. E-commerce, nobody knows how many sales you're going to get today, because it's going to change on a daily basis.
mhm,
And at the same time,
yeah,
it's this kind of constant evolving machine, because you're ordering stock in, that costs cash. You've got orders coming in, that generates cash. And sometimes there's a delay between the cash coming in and hitting your bank account. So actually having that daily real-time P&L is, as you say, as you grow, is so important. I've seen so many perfectly viable, scalable, well-foundationed businesses go wrong because they've run out of cash. And when you look at it from an outsider point of view, how? They got the best marketing, best products, everybody loves them, all the reviews are amazing, and they went bankrupt. And it's because
yeah.
they didn't manually look after their books properly.
And it's not so much that you have to do it on a daily basis. It's that if at the end of the month you're like, why does what is going wrong? And then you have to go and drill down and figure it out from not automated data, like going back and troubleshooting to understand what's wrong. You want to get the daily setup right, so that when you do end up at the end of the month thinking something's not right, we're not making money like we thought, you're going to have the financials to look at to be able to drill down and figure it out. So it's not like you're going to look at it every day, but it's there when you're ready, or when you have a problem, or when you want to study it.
Absolutely. I just want to take a moment out today's show to tell you about sales tax, which you probably find overwhelming. Never mind the stress that comes with when you're working with a provider that's overpriced, unreliable, and leaves you waiting days to get a reply. TaxCloud is here to tell you that there's a better way. They're not just a tool, they're a trusted filing partner for growing Shopify brands. They'll work directly with the states on your behalf to handle registrations, filings, and ongoing compliance, so you can stay focused on growing your business. Plus, with a 4.9 star rating on the Shopify App Store, merchants trust TaxCloud to get it right, and you can too. Go ahead and check them out, taxcloud.com/winning, or mention us when you sign up, us being the Winning with Shopify podcast. Listeners get a free migration onboarding service when they decide to make the switch. That's taxcloud.com/winning. Back to the show. Given that businesses are so complicated and so many moving parts, there must be some really complicated business setups that actually need quite a sophisticated system. Like, give us some examples of those, or how do you guys approach something? It's not a standard sort of products come in and sales go out.
No, you have multiple sales channels. So whether if you're purely e-commerce, you with Bookkeep, you can basically segment your online store from your draft orders from your Facebook or your TikTok shop using Bookkeep, so that when you look at your financials, you can actually see the P&L and L and the COGS by those channels within your accounting system, right? Depending on how you want to set it up. One of the things is there's a lot of apps out there. There's probably 50 apps in the App Store that will sync all your orders to QuickBooks, right? Don't use any of them. You do not want all your orders synced to QuickBooks. It's not accurate. They don't get updated. Once they're in there, they don't get matched to payments. It's really a complete mess. It works maybe if you do 2 orders a day. What you need is you need summarized financials that are accurate and reconciled to the financials. So meaning to the payout deposits or the money from Facebook or the fact that Facebook holds your sales tax and pays it for you, which is not really clearly represented in the Shopify report. So we allow you to segment your channels, book and map and class separately so that you can then slice and dice your financials. And I just want to look at how I did on Facebook with COGS, with fees associated through Shopify or TikTok Shop, or or you can do Amazon because we have a direct integration to Amazon. So that's really important to be like, well, maybe Facebook isn't just working for us because look at these fees and there's so much complexity with Facebook paying our sales tax and for us, and we're really not getting the revenue we need from that. But but you have that revenue data to match up with other data that you're putting into your accounting system.
Amazing. And something you've just touched on that is one of the biggest issues I think in my world at the moment. And I've spoken on a few other episodes about this recently, and it's attribution. So it's attributing sales to the right channels. But even if you had perfect attribution, it's understanding margins to set proper targets and KPIs. So whenever we're running anything on Google Shopping, for example, we have what's called ROI, return on investment. So you've spent $1 on Google Shopping.
Mm-hmm.
How many dollars of sales have we made? And actually, if you've got 5 campaigns running 5 completely different product ranges, and all of them are running at, say, 4-to-1 ROI, so we're making $4 for every one we spend, that doesn't take into account what you've just said, which is COGS, which is the cost of goods. It doesn't take into account the fact that those 5 product lines, one's really profitable, 3 are okay, and one's actually really, like, we need to be an 8-to-1 over here, and then like we only need to be 1-to-1 on this one because it's a subscription. So we need to be 1-to-1 on the first order, and then after that. So actually having that real-time information, if I had access to that data as an advertising person, that is the difference between success and failure, because things change on my end on a daily basis. The sun comes out and
Yep.
suddenly we're selling more sunglasses,
Mm-hmm.
t-shirts and shorts. The sun goes in and it rains, we're selling more
Mm-hmm.
umbrellas, we're selling more coats, we're selling more makeup that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't smudge when it gets wet. There's all these different products. So actually having that real-time data at my fingertips to say the cost of goods is going up on the stuff we're selling this week, I'm now going to make what might seem illogical changes based just purely on the Google data, but they're actually super logical when you look at the financials.
Yeah, and you can line up and group by product category also with our mapping system. So you can get down to that granular level as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we find some brands as well, they make loads of their own products and they have a few supplement products or supplementary products that are very unprofitable, but they're trying to hook people in. Again, splitting those two and having that in the financial information is super, super important.
And,
How much does this
and
affect Oh, sorry, go on, Jason.
well, I just want to say, like, getting to that level of, zen of perfection doesn't really exist. I mean, you can get close, but what we see, and we work with customers up to $1 billion in revenue, $1 billion companies. They might not be doing all their billions on Shopify, but they're using Shopify for portions of their business. But hundreds of millions in revenue on Shopify are working with us, and you really need to help your finance team just get the numbers into the books right. They sometimes are struggling. I cannot tell you how many calls I've been on where the finance team doesn't know what's happening in the front office, and they cannot figure out just from the Shopify interface, or the Shopify interface has changed. Shopify made some changes to reports in the last couple of weeks that finance teams were using.
Yep.
So we have a support team that can help them if they have questions, but really, you want to support that team to make sure that they can get that data in accurately daily into your books, so that they're not stressing out about it. Because my guess is often, a lot of times, someone's working late on weekends to try and get those numbers in to get those books done. Or you might see it as an owner or founder. Hey, why are we not getting our books closed? Why is it taking weeks or maybe more than a month to close the books for that month? Right. And usually it comes down to some of those things, like, I can't figure out this reconciliation. I don't understand why we didn't get enough money from Shopify based on the revenue that I booked, like those things that they're always trying to figure out. And so getting that set up through automation is really helpful to your finance team.
Yeah. And my bookkeeper, Lisa, here at my agency, like, she would be clapping right now, being like, come on, Nick.
Mhm.
I literally have to book an afternoon a month where I just
Mhm.
download Amazon receipts and invoices and whack them all into our system to get them into Xero, which is what we use. And it's it has to be done like that. It's different for me because we are an agency and we have lots of costs going around all over the place. But because you've got the ability to have the information in Shopify and you've also got it, as you say, in Xero or QuickBooks, whatever system you're using, being able to integrate those two things is so important. I think again, trying to what my job today is trying to take what you're saying and put it into so here's what we can do differently. And I think there's a really obvious thing we can do differently based on what you've just described, which is having the books closed within like a day or two of the month ending or the quarter
Yep.
ending or the year ending is so powerful. So many brands that I've spoken to, worked with, etc., and myself included, I've had it where some years it's like 7 months later, and like 8 months is the deadline for submitting your tax returns, and 7 months later, I still don't have a fully accurate picture of what did last year even look like. But I'm already 8 months into the next year trying to make decisions. Now, one of the things that's going to make this infinitely more complicated is multi-location, multi-bank accounts. If you have stores in different countries, for example, you have different bank accounts in those countries in different currencies. Shopify is a bit of a nightmare trying to manage that. But talk to me about that, because I know you guys have made some
Yep.
really good headway with this.
Yeah, that's really where we've really excelled and gotten really close with some pretty big Shopify brands on Shopify is because we're very, very strong with Shopify POS. So when you're dealing with when you're dealing with POS, you're going to want to segment your revenue for each location. You want to know how each location is doing. So when you run, if you run that finance summary in Shopify, it shows you your whole business. You might have 50 locations and all your e-commerce, and that's the revenue you see. And if you want to see one location, you got to hit that drop down in order to see the summary. If you're using, the financial summary is a pretty good representation of a day's Z report or the accurate full summary for the day. So what we do is we basically allow you to group each one of those channels, give it a class, and post those sales by those POS locations to your accounting system. We work with Xero, of course, as well, and QuickBooks. And that's really important for those POS locations. But we also, the important thing also is that we help you reconcile those payout deposits. So when that deposit hits now, you have an option with Bookkeep. If you're just e-commerce only, generally we can group your payout deposit and show you how much revenue per day is in this deposit. So you can match it to, okay, this day I did this much and this deposit has this much of that revenue in the deposit, right? But when you're a multi-location, sometimes you want to understand out of that payout deposit how much came from each location. Whether a lot of businesses, they don't care, it all goes to one bank account. But now the new feature that Bookkeep launched this year is we can take the accurate data that we have and we can actually move funds. So we have customers in the UK, we have customers in Canada, we have customers, a lot of these are franchises, but some of them are brands, but these brands have sub entities. And so the sub entities need the funds from a single business location to go to a specific bank account. So we actually calculate those numbers and create money transfers that automate the funds movement from their main bank account into those other bank accounts. So we're working with a lot of franchises in the US and Canada, some UK-based businesses that are multi-entity but under the same brand. And this has been really helpful because Shopify has moved quickly into POS. But this is it's funny because it's a feature that I've been in retail forever. You just expect that you're going to get a separate payout for each POS location. A lot of times customers come to Shopify and they start using POS and they're like, wait a second, why are we getting one big deposit for all 5 of our locations? And then they come to us and we figure that out and help them. But, so we're moving millions and millions of dollars a week in the US and Canada for a lot of these customers and with our automation.
Amazing. And again, thinking about a use case of that and something I have many conversations, and I've actually introduced you guys, well, I'm about to introduce you guys to a brand I, I spoke to recently as well. It just happened to have this same problem of multi-locations, multi-currencies, etc. One of the biggest things then, thinking about reporting to make good decisions is if your P&L is not broken down accurately by location, and that has to be a manual process. Again, however long the manual process takes is both expensive and you've lost time when something might actually be wrong that needs to be changed, i.e., a location is making a loss because you've stocked too many of a certain product there because you think they're selling, but actually the cost of goods for that product is really high. So you're not making much
Yeah.
money on that product. So again, having that data split as it comes out of Shopify from POS and online And even if it's multiple online stores, that's the biggest one we have is a business is based in one country and they say, right, I'm in the UK, so I can ship to Europe really easily because it's around the corner, or I'm in the US, so I can sell to Mexico and Canada, or I'm in the US, but my products come from Europe, so I could sell to Europe really quickly. So I'm going to open a warehouse there, multiple warehouses. So the multiple locations, I think everybody sort of sets out with a really good mindset of like, let's do this, and we can just find a courier to deliver there. And then suddenly, when you get into the nuances of taxes,
There's
fulfillment, imports,
entities,
exports,
this the
exactly, you
different
need the whole
entities,
thing
and that
broken down. Yeah, yeah,
exactly. And Shopify gives you the details and it might give you the reports, but you need that to flow into the right entities. We have a customer in the US, they're 150 locations grouped into 10 entities. They use Sage Intacct. We book 150 daily summaries to their accounting, to their Sage Intacct, and they're tagged, they have basically the right dimensions for the right entities. So they can run entity P&L and Sage Intacct for those regions using our reporting, and there's just no way anyone's going to type those numbers in. You can run those
yeah.
reports in Shopify, but it's basically having the flexibility to basically take what's happening on Shopify and turn it into multi-entity, multi-location journal entries with the right dimensions. It's basically the flexibility that you need as you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to make the point as well, if you're listening to this at the moment, guys, at home and thinking, that's not me, I'm not multi location, actually, you need to be doing this whether you're just one little store out of a bedroom
Yeah.
still or at your garage at home. And running, I started saying garage rather than garage.
Mm.
Just the amount of Americans I talk to, like yourselves,
Yeah.
based in Brooklyn. Yeah, and so I think whether you're one small business or you're a big kind of multi-entity, multi-location, multi-country, eventually intergalactic when we reach that part of civilization growth. But I think the big thing I found over the years, and having run lots of businesses, and I've got lots of things going on at the moment, the numbers, they tell you such a story. And whether you're making one sale a day or you're making a sale every minute, the numbers are so important. And like I've tried to emphasize almost every point you made so far, Jason, if you don't have the numbers under control, you're going to miss things. You're not going to be as profitable as you should be. We've
There's
even done
errors
things
too.
before.
You're going to miss
Yeah,
errors. I mean, I come
absolutely.
from a controlling standpoint. I cannot tell you how many accountants come to us and say, no, the owner says we did more revenue. I'm like, and we go back and we run history for them and realize that they did not close out draft orders properly months before. They didn't get paid for them. Right. So if you're not doing this, I mean, our system automatically reconciles essentially your payouts to your revenue, but there's a lot of places for draft order errors, and people miss that.
Absolutely. And I mean, even one Shopify business I looked at recently, they paid me to do some, and I don't offer this, by the way, before anyone else emails me. I just did it because they're local and I really wanted to help out. I did a deep dive into all the mechanics of their business. And it turned out, and this was the conclusion I gave them, is if you fired your whole marketing team, you scaled down 90% of your warehouse and spent no money on advertising, you would have more profit. Hey guys, I just want to take a moment aside from today's episode to introduce one of our amazing sponsors, Cavella. They are the all-in-one platform that helps you design, sample, and launch your product lines. Cavella are helping Shopify brands save up to 40% on stock costs thanks to their smart, streamlined supply chain. That means more profit for you, less costs, and loads of time saved in trying to get stock on your shelves. Right now, you can fast-track their waiting list and get 50% of your first sample order just by using the code WINNING at checkout. This is an exclusive offer for Winning with Shopify podcast listeners. Just go to the link in our description or in our bio to unlock the savings and skip the queue. You build your brand, save on stock, and step into the future of e-commerce with Cavella. That code again, WINNING. Back to the episode. All those things are wasting money. Your warehouse does not need to be where it is in a really expensive location. You have too many staff in the warehouse. Your marketing team is so busy running campaigns that pretty much break even. And actually, if you just kept your historic customers just without even emailing them, the ones who don't respond to emails, don't see an advert, the ones that just organically come back every year to buy another product, because that's roughly the shelf life of your product. Though, if you just kept those ones for the next 10 years, you could make more profit doing nothing. And it was like, the conclusion wasn't he got rid of all his staff and we kind of wound things down. The conclusion was this needs to be running better. This needs to do better. And actually, what I need to do and what I asked him to do, and he has now done, and it's been fascinating watching the results, is every single member of his team has done a timesheet, and we've allocated revenue into
Mm-hmm.
certain groups of teams, and then
Yep.
split the revenue by employee and looked at the cost of them and taken the entire premise of
Nice.
warehouse and office and split them by the employee. But if you're using Shopify, you've got the ability to get, as you say, all of that data into your accounting software faster. And your accounting software should know salaries broken down by employee, your rent costs, your service. And if they've been allocated properly, you can have this nearly in real time these days. And so I think, again, trying to look at those decisions we make, you're absolutely right. The ability to spot errors as well. I'm the most guilty person of getting so excited about my next podcast recording or event we're doing or the new car I'm buying or whatever it might be. I get so distracted by that then actually understanding this is how much we spent on this recently, and then that's split by the performance of people across the business. This is how much everybody needs to work slightly harder to cover the new tax costs or something. So that granular detail is so important, isn't it? And once you get that Shopify data in, you can actually do that within your accounting software.
Yeah, and you should be reconciling your books every single month. You should be getting statements from your finance team, your bookkeeper, every single month so that you know how you're doing. It's not a quarterly thing. It's not an end of year thing. It's not I send all my documents to my accountant at the end of the year and they do my taxes. Your
Big drum
accounting
roll. That's the
system,
tax bill.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, your accounting system is a key metrics for your business. And I actually posted something on LinkedIn this morning about this. You're going to have a bunch of front end systems that are going to give you reports. Your accounting system is your reconciliation of what all those reports are telling you to what actually hit the bank account, essentially. And that is, you're going to find a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. And even in our own business, we're a SaaS company. We bill through Stripe. And even still, it's so complicated. With this order got canceled, there was a refund. Oh, they did a refund against a credit or against a store credit. Or one other thing that we find a lot is, why are all these orders marked as paid and they weren't paid? Oh, the customer care team was really, really on it and they wanted to get this customer their item. The only way they could figure out how to get it to ship was to mark it as paid, because the customer was complaining. And so those are all going marked as paid under manual. And that manual bucket is growing. And we're like, what the hell is happening here? Like, if you're not watching that stuff, you just look at your Shopify reports and see order closed and paid. Well, what if the money didn't come in? Right. So we see a lot of that stuff. We train, we help people. Our automation does it. But when people have questions, often they can talk to our customer care team and we help explain some of those things. Because accounting is often, a lot of people are like, I don't understand accounting. I have an accountant. You got to understand accounting as a founder. You got to understand accounting as a business owner.
Absolutely. And I mean, you mentioned earlier, and I think it's a really interesting point to touch on, because I know a lot of you guys listening are CEOs, founders, or senior marketing people. It's frustrating sometimes when I jump on a call and the CEO or founder sort of says to me like, yeah, we're a $100 million a year business. And I sort of think, really? And then I go and have a look at their Shopify. I'm like, yeah, there's $101 million in there. So that's $100 million business. And then you kind of go, right, let's take the sales tax off. All right, we've just lost 22% across the board. And suddenly it's like, and actually, so then what's actually hit? And again, something you touched on earlier, I think is really, really key, is taxes get taken out. Like Facebook pays your tax, or Meta, sorry, pays your tax for you, but Shopify, it works differently. And then when you got the UK versus the US versus Canada versus Europe, the taxes come out at different points for different people, and it can get really, really. Not to turn this into another episode about tax, because obviously we mentioned earlier we do work with Tax Cloud as well, one of our sponsors, but having those complexities then logged somewhere to say, once we took all of that out and we now have fast, accurate data hitting our accounting software, it's like where we thought we made $101 million, actually it's more like $62 million after the returns, refunds. $62 million has come in. We're a $62 million business. And that is a really defining factor then between like actually how the CEO is thinking about the company, which will change the decisions that he or she makes.
Exactly. And a lot of times those CEOs are looking at the reports in Shopify. I mean, we were just dealing with an issue this week. You can cancel orders in Shopify. They still show as income in Shopify. So sometimes our reports don't match Shopify reports because of some of those issues where orders were canceled. So we don't show it as income in our financials for your accounting system, but Shopify might. And so those are just things you need to be aware of. It doesn't happen all the time, but that's really where your controller in your finance team and our software together can help with that.
I often say to brands in response to all of that, actually, that when you go from one sale, if that sale is not profitable and you suddenly go to 10 sales that are unprofitable, you've just 1000% scaled up your business, even in those early stages. And you suddenly got this 1000% size problem, or tenfold size problem that you didn't have previously. And I think one of the biggest issues with that is, or one of the biggest challenges we find is people then obviously sign up with Shopify. They think they've got all the data in front of them, think they can run this amazing business, and suddenly a year in, 6 months in, or 5 years in, or later in some situations, you look back and go, I wish I was doing this on day one. So back to your point, Jason, I think people, they need to start looking after their books. And most importantly, I'd love to hear your thoughts about how much they need to understand those books, even when that first order arrives or they do their first product order of stock.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you start a business, you really, the first thing you should do is set up a bank account, get your Zero or QuickBooks set up, make sure you do everything out of that same bank account, and then keep track and do the books yourself if you can. It's easier when there's not much going on. You can learn if you have to pay one bill, you have a couple sales, great, let's get them into the accounting system, see how they line up, because
Yeah. And build
your
that
accounting
process.
system yeah, your accounting system is your key metrics for your business, and accounting is the language of business. It doesn't have to be that complicated. It's basically, what you sold minus how much it cost you, how much you marketed for, and you can line those up in where people get confused is because you have to line it up in terms of a time period. But and for the month or the day or the week or however, how am I doing in this period? And but it doesn't have to be that complicated. And if you get started early when it's easier, you're going to be better off. Same with just the automation is getting getting Bookkeep set up early, getting your sales tax automated so you don't have to pay that or VAT in the UK. That all kind of stuff is going to help you, especially as you mentioned, when you want to sell the business later. You want those books and orders. It's a lot easier to sell a business when you have good books and you trust the books, and then somebody else will trust the books.
And we'll come on to the selling in a minute because I think it's such a big topic, and we didn't even have it in our notes, but now we're talking about it. Like it's such a big part
Mhm.
of this building to sell, scaling to sell, and why you should do that even if you end up not selling or don't aspire to. Why it's a good option. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But one thing I just want to quickly interject with as well is just to back up exactly what you just said, Jason. I got to about eight, maybe 9 years into running my business, and I went along to a accounting course, and the first sort of session was free. And I walked out going, I'm a moron. I'm an idiot. I'm completely inexperienced. I don't know anything about any of this stuff. And the guy in the first seminar, the first session, it was only an hour long. He listed about 8 or 9 things in the first 5 minutes that I was sitting there thinking, I don't even know that. I don't know what my incoming expenditure really is. I don't know what my margin. I mean, I'm a service-based business. I didn't really understand what my margins are. Lots of e-commerce brands I talk to, they don't understand, as you mentioned earlier, the cost of sale or cost of goods. If you don't understand that, how on earth are you going to make all the other decisions about marketing? And one
Yeah,
final point, and I'm quite passionate about this these days about people
yeah,
understanding these things. The final point as well is when you're talking to an investor, a staff member, a client, a marketing agency, when you're explaining as the business owner, as the linchpin of everything, when you're explaining your decision making process or the rationale or reasoning why a decision is being made, I found as from a personal level, it's a lot easier to communicate that when I'm using the numbers and not just saying like, I feel like $5,000 is a lot of money. That's the worst thing for me as an agency to hear. It's like, well, it's irrelevant, isn't it? If it's 5,000 to make 50,000, most businesses, that's fantastic. Some businesses, that's awful. It's got to be relevant to the number. And so you guys must find a massive difference between people that have been on those courses and understand EBITDA and all these other
Mhm.
random terms I'd never heard of before in my career to when they don't.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, don't get confused with the terms. I mean, as a founder, as an owner, don't it might not be good to take an accounting course because you're going to get taught by accountants, but
Pretty
you want
true.
accounting
Yeah.
for owners, right? How much
Mm.
money am I making? And it really, it has terminology, cost of sales, cost of goods sold. You don't need to worry about EBITDA. That's never important for making sure that you're
Yeah.
how am I doing? But really it comes down to how am I doing and making sure you got to track all your revenue, you got to track all your costs, and and then it gets a little complicated because of inventory and understanding, well, inventory is really cash. It can be turned into cash, but it's and how much cash do I have? What are my assets? Those are really the important things. And as you get busier and busier, you want to automate a lot of that. You want to automate your bill pay. You want to use in the US a bill.com, or there's a great Relay Bank is awesome. I use them myself. I pay all our own bills. I pay all our bills. I do all our revenue accounting. I do everything for my own business. I do it all in QuickBooks. I do have a controller, and she checks my work and she reconciles and she drills into problems that I don't want to spend time figuring out. And you should have a bookkeeper to do that, but you shouldn't just assume the bookkeeper is just going to do it and give you something. You need to really own it. And I've always done that in all my business, whether it was my wine store, my grocery store, my software company, and now this new software company. So I think it's super important. It's not beneath you as an owner. Accounting is the language of business.
Absolutely, and I've always taken the approach which my lovely uncle, who was an accountant, he was a finance director, very wise, very knowledgeable. He always said to me, "Never hire someone to do a job because you don't know how to do it. Find out how to do
Yeah,
that job yourself and hire someone to grow and scale." So
yeah.
now you've got 15, 20, 30 of you with better personalities fitted for each role than you could possibly have for all of them. But I'm exactly the same as you. Like I would not let anybody else make financial decisions in my business. People can present the facts, present the data, and do what I've asked them to do and manage things in the way I want them. But I've got to be in control, because when it all goes wrong, I'm liable. And if I'm liable and I know what's going on, I can deal with situations, and the situations don't grow and become a problem. But a lot of e-commerce brands, and I think you and your team would agree with me on this. A lot of e-commerce brands, when they come into Shopify, they see like the Shopify analytics and go, "There's load of numbers in there.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah.
box tick. Like, do I have reports? Of
Right.
course I've got reports." It's like they're all completely inaccurate and they don't make sense, and I can't make any decisions from them,
Yeah.
and I don't know what the numbers mean,
Mhm.
but they're there.
Yeah.
And that's where
Yeah.
using some automation software like you guys, or getting better dashboards and better data, can start to feed the right information through. Plus, even the process setting it up, you're going to get to the nuts and bolts of the actual economics of how your business operates, aren't you?
Exactly, and I wouldn't say they're accurate. The reports are accurate, but there's errors that happen. So there are errors that happen in transactions. They're also because you're putting a bunch of, if you connect a bunch of apps into Shopify, you're going to get a lot of apps don't properly create orders in Shopify. So they might do it enough so you can fulfill the order, but they don't do it enough so that you can actually properly account for the order. So that data, you really need to protect and understand that data, and that's where you end up reconciling it to your bank account using Bookkeep and your accounting system, right? Um, so yeah, so you need, it doesn't have to be that complicated, but you do have to understand how does that data reconcile. Just today I was talking to a client in the UK who doesn't understand why the revenue doesn't look right. And I said, well, because the gross sales also includes your gift card sales, and then the gift card sales go against the liability. They don't, well, the number that you're seeing in Shopify,
Yeah.
you have to add the gross sales to add to the payment to equal the total of the payments, right? And those are just things that you need to figure out to make sure that you don't have errors, that there aren't mistakes. And one of the things is that you have, you as the owner need to understand it, because you might hire an accountant, but the accountant's not really going to understand Shopify unless they're really specialized with Shopify. However, if the accountant uses Bookkeep, then they're going to understand Shopify better because they have us to back them up. Because that's really, we kind of bridge that gap between in-house teams use Bookkeep because it helps them automate, and we also continue to educate them when they're not getting totally into the weeds on, why does this canceled order still show up in the reports in Shopify, but it doesn't show in your report? Well, because it was canceled, but Shopify still shows it as an order, and stuff like that. But we can always, we help educate. Plus, we keep finding new things that Shopify does, and whether it's new fees that they charge through the payouts and stuff, but that we just keep up to date to make sure that all the finance teams do. So it's a team effort, but definitely running the business, you need to have a pretty good understanding of it before you just throw it over to an accounting team or an accountant.
Absolutely. I think the way people need to look at this is actually acknowledge that Shopify is a sales making engine and nothing more. It doesn't have your cost of goods. It doesn't have your profit margins. It doesn't have the rent you pay on your offices and
Right,
warehouses.
right, right.
It probably doesn't even reconcile delivery costs per order. So then,
Mhm. Yeah.
once you start to work out some of the terminology, like the difference between net and gross, I mean that was honestly one of the most eureka moments of my life, is the difference between net and gross. And I was like, I need to know both of those things at all times. They make a lot of sense now, but I didn't even know they were things. That's what I mean about understanding the terminology and that kind of thing. But Shopify is not going to include any of that stuff. So let's just to finish off, I think, as a final point, we'll come into land on this then. If you're building a business, a lot of people will say you should build the business as if you're going to sell it, even if you have no aspirations to sell. Worse still, you should build it ready to sell if you are actually going to try and sell it. What would a potential buyer look at, and what kind of problems would people run into having not kept a proper grasp on the numbers? Where are people going to become quite stuck trying to actually sell their asset?
Yeah, if you're buying a business, you're buying the history of that business, which it needs to be in the books and records. You're buying cash flow, you're buying obviously a brand, but there's a huge amount of work that goes into validating that information before someone's going to acquire your business. And so you need to have accurate books and records all the time. I mean, as you get bigger and bigger into the 10, 20, 20 million, 25 million, by accounting standards, you have to have those books and records. But small businesses too, if you eventually want to sell or bring on a partner or get a loan, honestly, even if it's not you want to have that stuff at your fingertips, and you want to have accurate financials at your fingertips so you can get that loan. So it's really important to, in the early days, get on top of the automation and get your books done and do your reconciliation every month, close your books every month, know how you're doing. That becomes easier and easier to do over time, and then you're going to have this great set of books that you can use when you're ready to sell the business.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And the thing I've come up against where I needed that information in some situations later in my career I've had, and earlier in the career definitely did not have, is on one level it's embarrassing, and on the second level, as you say, you get stuck when somebody asks you a question and you do not have the data to answer. If someone's thinking of giving you a loan, and I love that as an
Hmm.
example, it's not just selling the business,
Yeah,
it's even a loan. They will say, well, I'm only going to lend you this money if you can prove to me that I'm going to get it back. So if you go back and say, yeah, look at all my books, and they run some numbers and say, you're not profitable, and you want to get a loan from us and you're not profitable, we need to see a bulletproof way you're going to become profitable, or us giving you this money in a loan, we're clearly not going to get it back. And if someone buys the business, as you say, there's the brand, there's the customer base, but they're going to look at they're going to want to see your cash flow and go, you are a profitable business, you make this much profit per year, and then you're going to negotiate some sort of multiple of that profit as the buy price, plus assets and stock and cash and other things. But if you don't have any of that, it's like, they're not going to buy the business. And you guys listening, you're not going to buy a business if someone says, trust me, it's a great investment. That's not going to cut
yeah,
it. It's going to be spreadsheets, financials.
right.
And if you've got it all in order, even if the books are not making loads of money, you're going to save yourself loads of time, and someone's going to trust you more as someone to buy a business from, because it's not making tons of profit. That's the reason I'm selling it. But all the books are massively in order, and everything is looking really, really clean. It's clean as a whistle, and it is so important, isn't it, to have that both decision making, as we've spoken about loads, but also when you come to any of these kind of financial matters.
Totally, absolutely. You have to have it for yourself if you want to keep the business. You want to know how you're doing, and you have to have it if you're going to sell the business. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Amazing. Well, look, Jason, I said it was going to be the last question. If anyone, there is one final question, but it's nowhere near as detailed as that. If someone's listening going, all right, guys, you've over convinced me now about 50 billion reasons why I need to get my books in order, why there's more to life than Shopify analytics and Shopify data, which obviously there is, as you very well explained today. So thank you so much for that. How can people reach out to you guys? How can people get in touch? What's the best way to give Bookkeep a go?
Definitely the Shopify App Store. You can look up Bookkeep in the Shopify App Store, and you can add Bookkeep right there, or go to our website at bookkeep.com. And anyone can email me, Jason at bookkeep.com, anytime. We're here to help, and we work with so many Shopify stores all over U.S., Canada, and Europe.
Amazing, amazing. Every time you or anyone says the UK or Europe, I'm like, come on, guys, we got this.
Yeah.
I always feel like the US and Canadian economies are so much, so much. They're not necessarily bigger, but yeah, there's so much going on across the pond. And also, you guys dedicated onboarding and free trial. I've got in my notes as well. So
Yes.
yeah,
We
it's
have a
not
free trial, so you
expensive.
can try us out completely without having to put a card on file, and see how it works, see how the reports get generated. I tell a lot of people too, you just run us for 2 weeks, see how the reports look. You don't have to post it to your accounting system, but then you'll understand how the data matches up to what you think is happening.
Amazing. And so that is my challenge to all of you guys. We try not to talk about accounting and stuff too much because it doesn't seem to get as high of views, but it's so important. There's no point doing all the fun marketing stuff and the branding and product lines and developments and Netflix series for some brands we've had on. There's no point doing all of that if you're making a massive loss. It's like, it's the biggest kind of hypocritical way of running a business is the business has to be making money, and you can only do that with the right data. So Jason, to both you and the team, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for inputting so much. And we really appreciate your time. So thank you so much.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.
Amazing. And for everyone listening at home, we'll be back on it. We're back on Tuesday. I keep saying this and it keeps stuttering me because I've spent 5 years saying back next Friday. Back on Tuesday for Tuesday Tea Break Talks. I've got some really cool stuff coming up this week as well. So make sure you tune into that. They're much shorter than these Friday episodes. Back again next Friday with an amazing guest. So make sure you tune into that as well. If you haven't already, hit subscribe and leave us a review on whatever platform you are listening to this on. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you can join us again next time. Do you ever find that in your warehouse you have dead stock? You can't sell it, no one wants to buy it, and you can't get a refund on it? Or alternatively, you're missing inventory in your warehouse that you need. You've got sales coming in and you're low on stock and you haven't ordered more stock in time. All these things hit profit, and I've been there. I've run my own Shopify store and had exactly that problem. But we've partnered it up with Inventory Planner, who have the most incredible app to help you manage that and forecast exactly what products, what SKUs, even down to what color of product you need to order in advance to make sure stock levels remain consistent throughout. They're also running a 7-day boot camp. And if you want to go and sign up to that, it's 7 emails over 7 days. And it takes the same amount of time as your morning coffee. And in 7 days, like me, you can become an inventory management pro. Both links are in the description. Enjoy.